Welcome back everybody to another Elden Ring How to Cheese guide. Today we're gonna cheese the last boss. We're gonna cheese the Radagon and we're gonna cheese the Elden Beast. So, first of all, Radagon is the simplest one to cheese. So let's just start with him. And then let's have like 4 or 5 minutes on how to cheese the Elden Beast. So first of all, immediately when you get into the boss room, either be lightly encumbered and run also of course. Or use Bloodhound Step twice. So get next to him. As long as you're standing next to him and you're not using a regular attack or a regular damaging spell, he will not attack you. So that's the first cheese. I mean, it's very obvious. You've already probably seen this thing. But this guy is not the difficult part about this. The Elden Beast is way more difficult, this guy. But you can use, for instance, Poison Mist, you can use the Blade spell, you can use the Wraith Calling Bell. There's a lot of things that you can use here to deal damage to him. So you can just stand there and use your Wraith Calling Bell. But be careful when you're using the Wraith Calling Bell. If you spam the Wraith Calling Bell, you can actually stagger him with it. Even though it deals a minuscule amount of damage, you can stagger him. So be careful with that. Now then, the Elden Beast. How do we deal with the Elden Beast? Well, first of all, I recommend, if at all possible, this might not be possible with your setup, but if it is possible, either be lightly encumbered or again use Ash of War Bloodhound Step, because he uses a very strong ability where he smashes down on the ground and deals a lot of damage. There's going to be circles on the ground that you need to run out of, and the easiest way is just with Bloodhound Step. So if you can do that. Also, this boss, the Elden Beast, is going to be immune to all status effects. So if you're relying on status effects, you can just spec out of that temporarily. As for instance here, I used to have bleed on this heavy thrusting sword, but I instead spec'd it into Occult. As you can see, whenever you select a Ash of War, you also get a couple of options depending on what whetstones you have, and I just went for Occult here. Yes, you can of course also go like Lightning. You can deal damage of elemental types, but the damage is going to be reduced. So also keep that in mind. So the best thing, the only damage type which he has no resistance against is going to be physical. I just wanted to point that out before we start the how to cheese thing. So how do you cheese the Elden Beast? Well, as it so happens, the Elden Beast deals 90% of his damage is going to be holy. So as long as you can prevent holy, and with the setup I'm going to show you here, you're going to have 98% holy resistance. So he's not going to deal much damage to it. So, first of all, we're going to go from like least useful to most useful. You can, of course, use the consumable Holy Proof Dried Liver. You don't need to do it. It gives like 15% holy resistance. It's good, but it's, no, you don't need to go out of your way, in my personal opinion. There's another good one. It's a Pearl Talisman. Vastly boosts non-physical damage negation. It's good. Probably the best talisman, of course, for this fight is going to be the Haligdrake Talisman +2. And if I remember where you got this, yeah, this you get in the Moog area. There's like a couple of death birds guarding a corpse there, and you can pick up the Haligdrake Talisman. So that's the most important one. He also needs a little bit of physical damage. So if you can have a little bit of physical damage negation, that's great. So for instance, here I put on the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman. It's going to boost our physical damage negation. And then, of course, the spells. The most important spell for you, if you can cast this spell, I mean, you can, if you're close to being able to cast this, you can also, of course, use a great rune. You know, spend everything before this fight. Spend all your runes, level up your character, level up your flask, do everything, because this is, of course, the last boss. So, Lord's Divine Fortification is a spell you get access to after you've killed the Black Blade boss. You can buy this from Twin Maiden Husks, and it's just insane. This spell is exactly what you need, and of course, that's why it's available at the Twin Maiden Husks when you defeated Malkath, because the next boss is essentially going to be the Elden Beast. So, this gives 60% holy resistance to you, and if you have a Mimic Tear, for instance, give it to the Mimic Tear also. So that's really good. This is like almost mandatory, I would say, this spell right here. And if you want a little bit of cherry on top here, you can also, of course, pick up the Golden Bow. Increase attack and defense for self and allies, but it's not, necessary. Then for spells, if you are a physical character, of course, you don't need to pick up Pest Threads. But Pest Threads, I think, is the absolute best spell if you... I mean, sure, you can use like Azure Combat. If you're not specifically spec'd into one spell like that, if you don't have a specific game plan or anything, just a general spellcaster casting incantation or something, Pest Threads is absolutely amazing. It's the best use of Pest Threads in the game, I would say. Because Pest Threads is physical, And when you cast a spell, the longer the pests are inside of the body of the victim, they deal damage. And the Elden Beast is huge, so it's gonna take like 3,000, 4,000. If you really spec into this, you might deal 5,000 or 7,000 damage with pest threats, and you hit good also. It's very dependent on where you're standing. So you want to stand in a position where your pest threats can travel through the entire body of the Elden Beast, and then it can deal absolutely insane damage. So that's a spell we're going to be using. For the first phase, if you don't cheese him, you can use Dragon Eyes. Also, there's some flask options here to further increase the damage negation. So Opaline Heart here lasts for 3 minutes. So it lasts very, very long, and it increases all non-physical damage negation by... all damage negation? Okay, it's all damage negation. By 15%. So it is just a good thing to pop. It's pretty long fight, honestly, the Elden Beast. So pop this also, and again, if you have this and Opaline Bubble here, you will have 98% physical resistance. So just go close to him and cast Pest Threads, or if you're a physical character, just smack him. You can smack him from behind. I think that's easier to do that than doing what I'm doing here. If you're a physical character, I think he also has a weak spot on his back. So if you smack him on his back with any melee weapon, that should be fine also. And then he's gonna do this attack. You're gonna see here soon. When he goes up in the air like this, you need to run away, because he's gonna slam down with his body, and he's gonna deal a lot of damage. So you don't want to be close to that. So run away, and this will also save your Mimic, because your Mimic tries to stay close to you, or whatever summon you happen to have. Run close to this guy, and just cast Pest Threads. We're gonna... Okay, he runs away again. He's a master running away, this guy. A freaking bastard, I say, okay? Okay, Pest Threads, Pest Threads. It's dealing decent damage here. Not insane damage, but... Okay, that was... Okay, now we're getting some good hits there. Okay, 6,000, 8,000. Yeah, can we get another cost? Okay, 11,000, that's good. That was a little bit of an optimistic cast there. I don't think it's gonna reach him, but you know, sometimes when the boss is close to dying, you know, you cast whatever spell or do whatever attack you have, right? It's been the same. And now he just arrives in front of us, the fool of a Tuk. Now the Pest Threads rips through him, and as you can see, with all these resistances, we're not taking that much damage. I think a lot of buffs ticked out though. And up and down, 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 up and down. That's how you slay him.